Well, I hate to say I told you so, but I told you so. Another winter approaching, another hysterical clamour for mask mandates and lockdowns.
Decisions like masks left to the individual. But with each day and each week, this is playing its part in driving up COVID infections, hospitalisations, and ultimately deaths.
UK 2035.
A few more months and we've got this beat.
And as ever, it's all based on the weaponisation of behavioural psychology and a deliberate misrepresentation of the facts. The UK just recorded its highest number of COVID cases since July 17th. July 17th, when mask mandates were in place and had been for the previous 10 months. Solution? Bring back mask mandates, because they worked so well. Wait, but when we had mask mandates, case numbers soared to their highest since January. Doesn't matter, bring them back. Average recent case toll since the end of the mask mandates, 44,000. Case toll on the penultimate day of the mask mandate, which had been in place for the previous 10 months, 54,183. Solution? Bring back mask mandates!
If you as an individual are so frightened that you're going to go and put a face mask on in the middle of summer, you are personally investing. This is the reason the establishment is so vehement about wearing masks. People think that what you believe motivates what you're going to do, your action. But it also works the other way. Your action largely creates what you believe.
So mask zealots, riddle me this. Wales has seen the same spike in cases as England. They never dropped the mask mandate, it's been in place for a year. Ireland just recorded its highest case number since January. They never dropped the mask mandate. It's been in place for a year. In all three countries, COVID cases rose recently, whether a mask mandate was in place or not, which kind of suggests it has nothing to do with the masks. Could it have anything to do with the fact that millions of kids and students returned to schools and universities and have been tested multiple times weekly? Gee, I wonder. Reuters reports, children fuel English COVID case rise. As this graph shows, about half the current caseload is children. The vast majority, no symptoms, no hospitalisations, no unsustainable pressure on the NHS. The adult caseload has barely changed at all since it fell after July 17th. The media fearmongering about this huge spike in cases is pure bunk. It's fueled by mass testing of children.
There's no reason at all to worry about the rise in cases. The cases have been completely driven by rises amongst children. The children are just about to peak and fall away, and those children's cases have not produced any significant rise in hospitalizations. We have about the same level of hospitalizations that we've had since August.
And we predicted that they'd do all this at exactly this time over 6 weeks ago. And look who's back. Professor Pants Down calling for more restrictions. The same clown whose models have proven spectacularly wrong time and time again. He said that if restrictions were lifted in the summer, there'd be up to 200,000 cases a day. Wrong. He said it was, quote, almost inevitable that case numbers would rise once the mask mandate ended on July 19th. What happened? Case numbers dropped and haven't been higher on any day since. 200,000 my arse. Why are we still listening to a guy who said the first lockdown would kill 500,000 Brits and then took his own warning so seriously he spent that lockdown travelling halfway back and forth across London in total violation of the rules to shag his married mistress? Why are we still listening to him? As part of an effort to amplify calls for lockdown and blame people who didn't wear masks for the spike in cases, CNBC reported, quote, hospitalisations and deaths have been steadily increasing since the summer when COVID restrictions in England were lifted on July 19th. No, they haven't. That's an outright lie. This is the graph for hospitalisations since July 19th. They haven't been steadily increasing. They've either flatlined or actually gone down. Yo, can I get a medical misinformation fact check?
After we told them the vaccine would drastically reduce hospitalisations and deaths, we told them another lockdown was needed to reduce hospitalisations and deaths.
Is it such a surprise that a population that can be so easily terrified can be cowed into changing their behaviour on a whim yet again? It's now admitted that the government weaponised behavioural psychology, using, quote, unethical and totalitarian propaganda methods to exaggerate the threat of COVID in order to terrify the public into total compliance. They admitted this. The same government just released a report, which was then hastily deleted, celebrating how easy it is to make the public conform so long as you frighten them in the right way. But I'm sure they're not doing it now. The obedient always think of themselves as virtuous rather than cowardly. Remember, this is the same British public who had been so spooked and gaslighted that a poll found the average Brit thought 100 times more people had died of coronavirus than was actually the case. Look at what they've turned people into.
Cover your nose.
If they did a poll asking the British public if they would support this for the greater good, I bet at least half would. We're still recording COVID cases as anyone who tested positive for COVID and died within 28 days of a positive test. Colin Powell was 84 years old, had a compromised immune system and was fighting blood cancer. Cause of death, COVID. Gee, I wonder if this could skew the numbers. They test every single person who is admitted to hospital for COVID. More hospital admissions every winter, and unfortunately more deaths. More of whom will have COVID on the death certificate. Here's a thought. Can we make sure we actually confirm that a person died of COVID before officially recording it as a COVID death on the certificate? Is that too much to ask? And get this, the Telegraph asks, cock up or conspiracy? As many as a quarter of those people admitted to hospital for COVID were actually admitted to hospital for something entirely different, yet they were counted as COVID cases. At a press conference from Downing Street on Wednesday evening, Dr. Jenny Harries, the chief executive of the UK Health Security Agency, took the public through slides showing that there were currently 7,891 people in hospital with COVID in the UK. What she failed to mention is that this figure does not only include people admitted with COVID, but also those who test positive for coronavirus while in hospital for another condition. Hospitals were instructed to distinguish between the two groups earlier this year, but so far it has not filtered down into the official figures. Yeah, you'd think that'd be a big deal, wouldn't you? Doesn't seem like it. And if you're sat there thinking this can't get even more preposterous, well, strap yourselves in, because boy have I got a treat for you. So in Ireland, they cancelled the scrapping of restrictions. You already have to show a vaccine passport to get into a pub or a coffee shop. No option to show a negative test result, despite the fact that the vaccinated can still transmit the virus. You know who can't transmit the virus? People who don't have the fucking virus. Are they allowed in? No. That makes absolutely no shitting sense whatsoever. Until you realise it's about population control and mass compliance. But get this. Ooh, this is a doozy. In Ireland, when you visit a nightclub, you have to wear a mask, apart from when you're eating, drinking, or dancing. So apparently this virus has developed some kind of artificial intelligence that it knows when you're on the dance floor, rubbing up against other people in close proximity, breathing and sweating all over them, and it goes, oh, he's just having fun, leave him alone. But as soon as you stop dancing and walk to the bar to buy a drink, COVID suddenly becomes a risk again, and you have to put the mask back on. He stopped dancing, get him! So dancing squashed together with 100 other sweaty people in close proximity, that's COVID safe. But walking to the toilet isn't. And remember, all the people there had to have had the vaccine to get in. It's fucking mental. There's no greater example that cuts right to the sheer mind-numbing absurdity of the rules than that. Meanwhile, the drumbeat for vaccine passports in England is back on the agenda. It's part of the government's Plan B. As Laura Dodsworth writes, it's now becoming clear that the COVID passports are a behavioural science tool used to increase vaccine uptake. Dodsworth warns that the government could be preparing a reciprocation nudge in which we appear to be given a concession, the freedom to see our friends and relatives at Christmas, as long as we roll over and accept a less severe option, in this instance COVID passports. You be good little boys and girls or Father Christmas won't come.
I sense if they try and lock us back down again, there'll be many millions of people who will say, the hell with it. And I have to tell you, I will not be showing any vaccine passport to go and buy a pint in Wetherspoons or any other pub.
In the space of about 20 months, we've gone from please wash your hands to take a mandatory government medical procedure or you won't be able to have a job, eat in a restaurant or get an organ transplant. That escalated quickly. What's the situation going to be in another 20 months? Meanwhile, Sky News continues its lobbying campaign for a new lockdown. Could that have anything to do with the fact that people staying inside all day staring at screens boosts their ratings? Surely not. The good news is that the public increasingly isn't buying it, with polls showing support for more lockdowns in decline. Meanwhile, I'm sure the editorial impartiality of American news networks remains completely unaffected by this.
Is brought to you by Pfizer.
CBS Health Watch sponsored by Pfizer.
Anderson Cooper 360. Brought to you by Pfizer.
ABC News Nightline. Brought to you by Pfizer.
Making a difference. Brought to you by Pfizer.
CNN Tonight. Brought to you by Pfizer. Early Start. Brought to you by Pfizer. Friday night on Aaron Burnett Out Front. Brought to you by Pfizer.
This Week with George Stephanopoulos is brought to you by Pfizer.
This weather report brought to you by Pfizer.
Today's countdown to the royal wedding is brought to you by Pfizer.
And now a CBS Sports Update brought to you by Pfizer.
Meet the Press Data Download brought to you by Pfizer.
This portion of CBS This Morning sponsored by Pfizer.
On how to find the hidden sugars in the American family diet. Sponsored by Pfizer.
Really makes you think. It's absolutely crucial for you to help me fight the war on free speech by supporting me via Subscribe Star, link in description, and also signing up for my free newsletter at summit.news/newsletter.